I'm now 21 years old saying that I'm going to a new college with a new degree to a place where I know nobody. I knew one person moving in. I had to fire a guy because he was getting yelled at by a customer and he thought he hit the mute button and he didn't hit the mute button. And he said, pardon my French, "Oh my God, will you please just shut the fuck up?" That Thursday morning when I got up, I called in and I told him I quit. On the spot. I didn't put in 2 weeks. I didn't put in a resignation letter. I quit.
You start whenever you're ready. If you could talk to childhood Tony today, being what you've been through, what would you tell him?
There were also several very real conversations between, my wife and I, saying like, you got to get this under control. Like, what is going on? Full disclosure, this is the first time that I have ever talked in this capacity about my past outside of those four walls.
Before we get to this episode, I just wanted to thank each one of you who has chosen to watch one of these videos and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me, but we have some work to do. Over 78% of those who are watching these videos are not subscribing to my channel. The more subscribers that I get, the more this channel grows. The more this channel grows, the bigger the guests get, the more inspirational the stories get, and the more people just like you who are watching are going to be inspired and helped. So, if you are enjoying these videos, I invite you to subscribe. Thank you and enjoy this episode. You ready, dude?
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Barbells and Bourbon podcast. I am your big, bald, bearded, barbell lifting, bourbon drinking son of a bitch, Shaun. And joining me today is Tony Cuda. Do you ever get called Cuda?
I have not been called Hemi.
Do you know what Cuda is?
An engine.
It's a car. The Cuda is a car, but the Hemi is an engine.
So my dad back in the day had I want to say a 72 Cuda, maybe.
Yeah,
I believe.
But
yes.
How ironic.
I'm sure he
had
planned
a Cuda.
it. No, my dad, he planned it the whole way.
So corny. so
Cuda and a Cuda.
Typical.
There you go.
Welcome back to our home. You've been here before.
Not the first time.
That sounds scandalous. But yeah, you've been here before. Welcome back. You've never seen where the magic happens.
No, that's what we were saying when I was coming up the steps. I was like, about to see where magic happens.
Yeah.
I've seen it on video so many times.
Is it
the first
what
time
you
in person.
expected?
It's even more. The ambiance when you actually get here is, again, whether you see it on a video call with you or watching this podcast, as I mentioned, I am a subscriber, and it is the ambiance is a whole different thing when you're sitting in the room.
And it smells good in here
cool.
too.
It does smell good.
Have that candle burning behind you?
It does.
Smells like a man.
Nice little aroma.
Well, welcome back, dude.
Thank you. Thank you for
I've
having
been looking forward to our conversation. We've known each other for quite a while. We go way back.
I was thinking about that earlier today.
Yeah.
It's been at least 10 or 12 years.
I think it's probably even longer. Because we met playing softball.
Yep.
With
Reaction Nutrition.
Thank you, Pat.
Which shout out. I heard that and I was like,
Isn't that
hey, that's
funny?
how I know Shaun.
Yeah. So yeah, we met playing softball. So I was thinking before this episode today, remember that massive guy that Pat brought with him? That complete brick shit house that he brought?
Yes.
And he pulled his hamstring?
Yes, in the first game.
First at bat?
Yes.
Running the first?
Yes.
I was just like, well, there goes our hope for the season.
Yes, and I actually know who that guy is.
Do you?
Yes.
You don't have to name names.
No, but he married somebody that I went to high school with.
Okay.
And I know full circle that their daughter plays softball with somebody that I go to school with. My daughter goes to school with now.
How's his hamstring?
It is apparently a much better. I don't think he's played softball since. I think he coaches now.
Okay.
So,
but yeah, I just was thinking about that earlier today. I was just like, oh, like, dude, this guy's gonna be cranking homers,
right? I think we all had that vision, especially playing at Penn Hills Park.
Oh well, so much for that.
Yeah, we got through one or two at bats, and we were like, oh man,
he's limping off the field.
Yeah, by the end of that year, I think we were playing with 9 guys every week.
Yep,
it was a good workout.
Yes. So yeah, we've been playing softball for at least 10, 12 years together. I took a hiatus last season just because I'm just so busy, but I'm back on the roster this season. Haven't made a game yet.
We hope to see you out there.
I
soon.
will. I'll be out
We hope
there.
to see
I
you
miss
out there
it.
soon.
I miss the camaraderie. I miss being around you guys.
I miss the running, leaping,
the
chest
run, leap,
bumps.
chest bump between the outfield and
That
the
is,
infield.
yes. I mean, for many years playing left and left center, that was how we started every single week.
It's going to happen again.
I look forward to that day.
But haven't really seen you in a while, so welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Where are you from, man?
I am from very far away, originally in Plum, Pennsylvania.
Which is here.
5 minutes away from here.
Yeah.
And I currently live 10 minutes away now in Monroeville.
And
I'm moving back to Plum in 9 days. So it is coming full circle, moving back to the same plan that I grew up in. So
do you think it's going to be your forever home?
it will be.
Yeah.
And I will tell you why it will be my forever home. When we bought our last house 6 years ago, I moved in and I said, I bought my coffin. I said, I am going to die here. I'm either, the only two ways I'm leaving here is if I die or if I downsize.
You were
when my kids
convinced.
are older. 100% convinced. I love the house I live in right now. Yeah. And, kids get older, grow up, working from home, you're like, you need a little more space. So we bought a bigger house. And you know why I know I will never move again? Because my wife told me 3 days ago, I am never doing this again.
Well, you moved.
And so now that I have said it and now she has said it, I am 100% on. I'm convinced this will be our last move until we downsize. Because we will have
because
to downsize.
She said so.
Yes.
I mean, you moved twice in the last 6 years. Mm-hmm. Moving sucks. I've never had to move between houses. I know how much stress it is just furnishing a house once, but I can't imagine. And now you have two daughters with lots of toys and big toys, and you collect a lot of stuff. So
6 years old and 3 years old, and the toys don't get any smaller as they get older. So yeah, a lot of stuff to move, but it's very exciting stuff. We've gotten rid of a lot of stuff too. I was telling you earlier, a lot of stuff you accumulate over time, and then it's nice to be able to go through everything. I mean, we talked about even before we decided to move that we were going to do a spring cleaning, and now we just looped that right into moving.
It's like do a massive purge.
Yeah, every week we're posting on buy nothing pages and like, hey, porch pickup. Like we had a server out there, a dining room server out there today, and a throw rug for a living room.
So what's your rule of thumb as far as if you haven't seen it or used it in X amount of time, you don't need it?
So full transparency, most of the stuff we got rid of was baby stuff.
Okay.
We debate every now and again whether that door is closed or not. I'm not getting any younger. My wife is a little bit younger than me. But it was a lot of baby stuff that we got rid of for the most part. I wish it would have been some more toys. There's still other stuff that we hold on to. But the newborn stage stuff, because, even my niece and nephew are 8 months old and 2.5 now. So, the real tiny baby stuff we don't need anymore. So that's a lot of what we got rid of, which was still nice. We have some friends who have young kids. So again, we've been trying to, find a way to give back, have people take it for free. We had gave some car seats away, so yeah. Not necessarily a time frame on when we haven't used it, but I did enact that rule in the new house, though. If a box sits there for 3 months, so we were moving in 9 days, I said. If a box is still sitting in my garage in 3 months and 9 days,
you obviously didn't need it.
I did not need it.
Yeah.
I plan on, organizing everything relatively quickly, and if we haven't used it in 3 months, it's going to the curb.
Did you see that story on the news about that hoarder in Plum?
Mm-mm.
It made the news.
No.
Yeah.
I don't watch the news.
Well, you're not really missing much.
Very depressing.
But there was a house in a plan in Plum, and the woman who owned the house, her whole yard was full of junk. And I know me saying it, you're trying to visualize it. If you Google it, I want you to Google it right now, Plum hoarding house. I'm sure you're going to find it. It was nuts. So I guess all of the neighbors tried to get this woman to clean her shit up, but she wouldn't do it. Then someone contacted KDKA News to see if they could make something happen.
Motivate them.
And it happened. They did this massive cleanup,
Wow.
And I guess it's all cleaned up now, but wait till you see pictures of it, man.
I'll have to take a peek.
I like being a neighbor of someone like that. I can't imagine how frustrating that would be.
Oh,
Looking out your window and seeing just garbage every day.
right. Or I'll look at it from the flip side of somebody who just sold a house. Like, I mean, you're decreasing the value of my
Property value,
house
yeah.
because of, what's going on there.
So happy ending to that. And I don't know the name of the woman. I'm sure as the owner of the house, I'm sure it's really hard to get rid of your stuff because she obviously has a hoarding issue.
Right.
It's a problem.
It is.
And I can't imagine having to let all that stuff go. I'm sure it's very difficult, but you did good. Your neighbors are proud of you.
Well done.
But anyway, you drove 10 whole minutes to get here, man. You've got to be thirsty.
It might have been 12.
You got to stop and pee on the
It
way.
was tough. No, I used your bathroom.
You did. You already. Okay, I already know you don't drink, and we're gonna get into why. So I'm not even gonna offer you a drink because that would be horrible of me to do so. But we have some delicious Project One nutrition supplements just waiting to be consumed. Is there anything here that looks interesting to you? And I'll just give you a little tour of what I have. So we have a test booster. I'm not going to let you take that on this episode. I don't want to see what's going to happen. Pre-workout.
Where's the camera aimed? I think
We have a pre-work. If you want your face to itch, Quantum X, Amp Nox. It's a pre-workout also without caffeine. Amino Evolution, BCAAs, EAAs, good for hydration and supplementation and all that good nutrition stuff. Collagen for your lovely skin that you have, your baby skin, and electrolytes. Does anything look appetizing?
I will go with the aminos.
Good choice.
Always a good choice.
I'm going to do the electrolytes
Okay.
because I had them with Pat Williams, CEO and co-founder of Project One Nutrition, and they
Shout
were
out.
freaking
Shout out
amazing.
Project One.
Which one? Oh, this is you. So the electrolytes are new. This is the berry flavor, and they're delicious. I should have taken these after cutting the grass earlier today.
Been a good
So I
time
was
for it.
sweaty. Very sweaty.
It's very humid today.
So sticky.
Yes, and it happened quickly.
Yes. Very, very sticky.
Yes. It was not like that earlier in the week when it was hotter at
No,
all.
no.
It changed a lot.
Pittsburgh gets really humid.
It does.
I know it's not as bad as Florida in the Carolinas, but
I can. So I have friends that live in Florida, and my family and I have visited Florida several times. We're Disney obsessed. But it is the humidity in Florida, whether it's hot or whether it's chilly, is different.
isn't it?
The chili is very surprising. It's like a piercing type of cold, like that you can feel it all the way down to your bones. It is very, very different. When it is 55 degrees up here, I am running around in shorts and a long sleeve t-shirt at most. When it is 55 down in Florida, you are
winter
probably
jacket.
going to see me in pants,
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous.
and that doesn't happen.
We were down there a couple months ago for a soccer tournament for Cam. And we're like, oh, we're going to Florida. I think it was March or February.
Okay, I remember that actually.
It was like in the mid 60s. I'm like, oh, this is lovely. And then it got cloudy and windy, and it was like 55 degrees, which is still warm
Right.
by Pittsburgh, perspective. I was fucking freezing.
It's different, man.
Freezing.
It's very different.
Look at this little color combo we got
Cheers.
going.
I like it.
It's adorable. What do you think?
Good.
Hey, you haven't had those yet?
I've not had those.
Well, you should buy some. Code BTC10 for 10% off. Shameless plug.
No shame.
Well, dude, I know a lot about you, but I know there's a lot about you that I don't know. So that's why you're here today. You're here to tell me your story and tell others your story in the hopes that your story will help somebody, inspire them, motivate them, relate to them, because everyone out there is dealing with something right now, or they have dealt with something. And, maybe they're struggling and they just need a little boost to hear that, hey, they're not alone. Someone else has dealt with the same crap. So, that's why I have this podcast and that's why you're sitting here. So let's inspire. Let's hear your story.
It.
So you're a successful person. You have a lovely family. I'm sure the road to get to this point hasn't always been smooth. Maybe smoother than others, maybe not. I don't know, but we're here to find out. So take me back to your childhood and let's sort of, start telling the story of the Tony Cuda.
Oh, the Tony Cuda. Oh, man. Childhood was good, man. It was. I said I grew up in Plum. Good neighborhood, lots of kids. I talk about this a lot with people on how different. I'm not that old.
How old are you?
I'm 36 years old.
You're not that
I will
old.
be 37 in August.
You young son of a bitch.
And it is so different today than it was when I grew up. We lived outside 24/7, 365, whether it was 95 degrees or whether it was 15 degrees.
And going to your room was a punishment.
Oh my gosh.
Back then.
Yes. It's hilarious that you say that because I sent my 6-year-old to her room a couple weeks ago and I didn't hear anything. And I was like, man, when I got sent back to my room, like it sucked when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I find her, she's upstairs playing with her Barbie dream house, playing with baby dolls. She's doing her thing. She's having a blast.
Kids would rather be inside.
I said, man, that's not a punishment. I
No,
said, I got to
it's
find
not.
something else. You know what her punishment is? We take her iPad away.
Boom. Yeah.
And the sad part is I know I'm not alone. I know so many other parents do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, childhood, it was fun. Oh my gosh. Every sport you could imagine. I grew up right across from Boys Park in a Wimbledon plan. 10, 12, 14 kids on any given day running around, street hockey, basketball. My dad had a big backyard or a big lower yard. We played wiffle ball down there. We had a big driveway with a basketball hoop. We played basketball all the time. We played street hockey down at the cul-de-sac at the end of the road. We played football right across at Boys Park.
Yeah.
Everything you could imagine. And that's what we did 24/7, 365. It was awesome.
Yeah.
My little brother and I, wrestled, loved, and fought like brothers. It was a lot of fun. My dad was tough, very strict, disciplinarian. His dad was in the military, so that's how he grew up. That's how I grew up. But that relationship has really, blossomed over time too. He coached me my whole life. We spent a lot of time together when I was younger. Not as much through like the teenage years, and then we're like full circle here.
Yeah, isn't it crazy how
we're super close now.
The older you get, the more of a friendship you build with your parents.
And that's
It's
exactly
the same
what
way
I would
for me
say.
too. Yeah.
That's exactly the word that I would use.
Yeah.
Is that it's more of a friend thing.
Yeah.
We talk as peers now instead of father and son.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So you said he was strict, disciplinarian. You knew right from wrong.
Oh, I knew right from wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And if I didn't know right from wrong, I learned it very quickly.
Did that make you afraid of him or just respect him a little bit more?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But one thing I've learned over time is that there's a difference between a fear and a healthy fear. I had a healthy fear of my dad.
Yeah.
To the point where I was a very, very good kid. I didn't start to be an idiot until I was like 18. I started doing dumb stuff when I was out on my own and made my own decisions.
Yeah.
Before I was a very good kid. I had straight A's my entire life. I graduated high school over a 4.0 GPA, took advanced classes. I was a very good kid. Played baseball year round. Trained for, if I wasn't playing, I trained for it. Talking about that relationship with my dad had to throw 100,000 baseballs to me in my life. And I'm not exaggerating that number.
Wow.
When my dad worked, he was a steel worker. So again, blue collar, tough guy.
Yeah.
And the best part is, you've seen my dad before too. He is all of about 5'4", 160 pounds soaking wet.
But he's jacked.
But he is. He's 70 years old now. And he is.
For 70, man, he is.
That is my goal. Dad, I want to look like you when I'm 70.
70 goals. It's my goal too.
Right. It's but yeah, I mean, so he worked in the steel mill and he worked a 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. shift. So especially during the summertime, you know, he would go to the gym when he got off of work, and he would be home by noon. And 3-4 days a week, you could see us at the Plum baseball fields, either hitting ground balls, taking BP. I mean, he was very dedicated to coaching and helping me be the best ball player that I could be. And I mean, again, to my love of softball, to this day, you know, I will continue playing softball as long as I can until my kids are playing softball on their own and I can then coach them. That will be the next chapter.
Full circle.
But yes, for sure.
So your dad was strict, but he sounded like he was a really good dad.
He was.
Very present.
He was.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely, like, I mean, especially, again, I ate, slept, breathed baseball. And he was there for all of it. He coached me all the way up until, you know, I started playing high school ball. He came to every game in high school. You know, that was what we really bonded over. He got me into, you know, hunting and the outdoors a little bit, but as soon as I was able to drive, that kind of went out. So I haven't hunted or anything like that in about 20 years. But, you know, we bonded over that a little bit. But baseball was, I mean, that was my first love, my only love.
He still comes to the games.
He still comes to softball games. You're right.
That's super
You're
cool
right.
to see your dad. Like my dad comes to some of the games too,
Right.
and it
dad.
is cool to like have that. We keep saying full circle moment, but you know, I played baseball as a kid. You know, my dad, same thing. We'd be playing catch in the yard all the time, and he was a lefty, so he'd be throwing lefty. So that was an interesting like dynamic to whatever. But you know, yeah, he came to all my games and as a kid, and now he's coming to my games as an adult.
Yeah.
So it's like for him, he's probably still proud to see me play, you know, and do well and still be athletic and stuff. So you got straight A's. Good for you. Did you have to try hard?
No. And that was my problem. That was my problem when I got to college, because I didn't have to try hard.
So it just came easy.
Very few classes, you know, especially like, I mean, math, science, the stuff that a lot of people work hard for, it came to me very, very easily. Always did. And so I never did have to work for it. And it became a detriment, you know, when I got to college, because I would have done very well in college if you didn't actually have to be in class.
Okay.
I didn't like going to class.
Where'd you go to school?
So I started at Penn State, New Kensington. I ended up going there for 3 years. And then I was in the middle of a semester one day, and I was kind of fed up with, I guess, where I was at that point. Because I felt like I wasn't living a traditional college life. I was working 2 jobs from the point that when I was 18, I worked 2 jobs. I worked probably about 60 hours a week. And that was to help pay for college, but it was also just for play money.
Sure.
Which I never had playtime. So I mean, it was kind of a little oxymoronic long term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to Penn State New Ken for 3.5 years. And then I decided one day, I was like, I'm just not happy with what it was. I actually withdrew from the semester, mid-semester. I said, I'm done with this. I gotta find something different. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
Wow.
You know, that was I think it was a tough moment to swallow for me, because again, I was so good in school. Everything came so easy. And I just sat here like, I'm now 20 years old, 21 years old, and I'm like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'd changed my major, I think 4 times in 3 years. I started as an electrical engineer, or computer science engineering, and I decided I couldn't just program in front of a computer for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
It was too tough. I am a little bit more of a social butterfly than that. I tried electrical engineering, and the courses just weren't interesting to me. I don't know if it wasn't. I think part of it was the math and science just didn't seem challenging. I don't want that to sound arrogant or anything like that, but
okay.
It wasn't challenging me. So I decided to go into business, completely flipped from, you know, a science and math based thing to just learning business. I was managing a fast food restaurant, and I felt like I was learning a lot about, business and entrepreneurship by doing that, running financial statements, balancing a P&L. And so I decided to go into business. And so that started as business management. And I was like, business management is really boring. So then I decided I wanted to go to finance. I said, that will cover this side of business that I want to learn, but then that will give me math that I want to learn too. And so I finally decided that I went to go change my major, and Penn State, they didn't offer a finance major at New Kensington. And the Smeal College of Business up at Penn State, Maine is just polluted with candidates that you can't get in after you've finished your full second year, I think. So I would have had to transfer my 5th semester in. So I was already past that. So my options were to go to Altoona or up to Penn State Barron up in Erie. Yeah. And I was like, nah, none of those sound fun. Like, I want to go somewhere where I want to have fun too. I was ready for that college life now. So a friend of mine from Plum said, hey, I'm going to Cal U in the fall. Why don't you look into it? And I was like, oh, cool. That sounds great. I looked at the website for about 5 seconds. I saw that it was still close by enough, far enough away to where it wasn't here.
Yes.
Close enough to where I could still come home whenever I wanted to.
Yeah.
And so I ended up at Cal U, and I lived there for 3 semesters. I finished my final semester at home, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
So hearing that you withdrew from Penn State New Ken after almost 3 years, like I didn't see that coming. Like I said, I knew a lot about you, but I didn't see that coming because you were a straight A student in high school. Everything came easy to you. And then you don't know where your purpose is.
I was on a partial scholarship at Penn State New Ken.
How did your family view this confusion that you had in this constant changing your major? How did that go over?
So it didn't go over much at all because I didn't tell them. I kept it all to myself. For a long time, I was somebody who internalized everything. I didn't talk about things. I didn't tell people how I felt, what I was doing, which, again, hindsight's always 20/20. But you go to college, there's advisors left and right. There's student mentors, teacher mentors, all these different resources that you can leverage. Never used any of it. I was like, I'm going to figure this out on my own, because that's what I did. I always figured out everything on my own. I did everything on my own. I didn't need anybody else for it. This one took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of just came home from work the one day after I had already figured this out. Now, when I say I already figured it out, I filled out my application, paid my application fee, sent it in, got an acceptance. And then I said, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm going away to college in the fall.
P.S.
And, my mom was really upset when it happened. And my dad just kind of looked at me like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? Like, aren't you like done with school now?
Yeah.
And I said, no, honestly, because I can't figure out what I want to do. But I think I figured out what I want to do now, which is still not what I'm doing right now. But but that's a whole nother discussion for another day with college. But yeah, I didn't tell anybody about it.
Do you think they trusted that you knew what you were doing?
At that point, no. I don't think so.
Do you think they thought that you were throwing away all this hard work?
Without a doubt. No question. My dad told me, again, my dad was, he was not only a steel worker, he actually used an air compressor to take sample chips out of steel to send it down to a lab to get tested for what the steel could be used for. That was his job. Very tough on his joints. He's retired now. Thank God. But it was very tough on him over the years. So he told me my entire life. He knew I was a very intelligent person. He said, please use your brain, not your body. Make a living using this, not this. And so I think it was very surprising to them. And no, I don't think they truly believed that I had anything figured out at that point. I'm now 21 years old saying that I'm going to a new college with a new degree to a place where I know nobody. I knew one person moving in. But for me, it felt like it was the right thing to do.
They had to trust that a little bit, maybe not in the moment, but, deep down, you kind of have to trust. You're an adult at that point.
Right.
You don't have to agree with what you're doing, but,
Well, they
sometimes
definitely didn't agree with it. But I'm sure there was a little part of them that said, like, he's still a smart kid. He'll figure it out.
And you turned out fine.
Took a little bit, but,
So back to Penn
okay.
State, New Kensington. It's about 15 minutes away from here. And it feels like high school.
It is.
That's where I got my engineering degree from.
It's 13th grade.
It is. Very similar class sizes, a very similar campus. It's pretty much just one building. It feels like high school.
Yep.
So I totally get that you weren't getting that college experience because I didn't get it. And I stayed there for 4 years. It worked for me. It was convenient. My parents helped me buy a new car. That was the deal.
It was economical.
If I commuted to school, they'd help me with a car payment if I wanted a new car. So I'm like, and I loved cars. So I'm like,
Right.
Sign me up. So yeah, I didn't get that full college life. Part of me regrets it. Grass is greener conversation.
Always.
I don't know. I can't have that conversation because I'd never lived college life, but I lived vicariously through friends. I used to go down the pit, the main campus, to the dorms and have parties and go to house parties in Oakland and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is what college is like. This is cool. Meanwhile, I'm like in my bedroom at night watching TV. That was my college experience. So how was Cal U different for you?
It was no rules. It was me 100% fending for myself for the first time. Nobody to support me, nobody to tell me, to guide me one way or the other. Nobody to say, hey, you got to go get a job. Hey, you got to go study. Hey, you got to cook dinner. It was a whole brand new learning experience about life. And I don't even mean that just from like a college perspective. I cleaned my own dishes. I made my own food. But one of the coolest things so I moved into the apartment complex that was just off campus, right up about a mile up the road. It was called Vulcan Village. And I moved into a 4x4 apartment, 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom, common living area, full kitchen. It was a beautiful apartment. And I lived with one other guy and 2 girls. And that was an incredible decision. Not for the fact of like fraternizing or anything like that. Yeah. Both girls became really good. I had 2 girls that lived in the first 2 semesters and then a different 2 girls that moved in my last semester there. All were really good friends. But the cleanliness of the apartment was so much better than I know so many guys who lived with 4 guys. And there would be times when I would walk in and be like, hey, what's up, man? And look and be like, I can't sit here. Like, you guys got to do something about this. It smelled, it was almost like, living in a frat house.
Why are guys such pigs?
And I know, right? But again,
guys, do better. Stop being such pigs.
Do the dishes. Do the dishes.
It's okay.
Help with things.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a big life experience for me too. Like, I mean, just knowing how to take care of things.
You were thrown into adulthood really fast.
Yeah. But it was at least by my own doing. Sure. Nobody else, threw me out on the street or something like that. So I think that changed my perspective on things a lot.
How did you do in school?
I did okay. Classes that that they didn't take attendance for grades, I got A's in every single one of them without question. I took as many online classes as I could because I didn't want to go in.
So that was a thing then?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So you're younger
especially
than me.
Business courses.
Okay.
A lot of the business courses you could take online. Now, like, your calculus, your investments, business calc, those type of classes, financial management, you had to be there for those ones because that was more about, portfolios and, learning what they considered business calculus, which I've never used in my entire life, but I got an A in that class.
Good for you.
Yeah. So classes that I didn't have to be there for, I got A's in every single one of them. But business classes are always 8 and 9 a.m. classes. And I had a lot of fun at college. And I didn't always get up for those 8 and 9 a.m. classes. If I did, sometimes I still smelled like a brewery from the night before.
Oh, man.
But, you know, that was cool, though. That was
Yeah,
college.
so you took the college life and you just soaked it all in.
I did. I mean, I 100% lived a 4-year college life in my year and a half up there. And I did a little bit of everything. You know, I got a job for 2 semesters up there. I worked as a line cook in a kitchen. I had plenty of restaurant experience, management, you know, fast food, pizza shop, you know, lots of food experience. So I got a job as a line cook. That way I could have money to, you know, pay for the little things that I needed. I had a car up there still, so I had to pay for the car payment still. But yeah, so, I mean, I got a job. I passed all my classes, never failed a class, you know, did everything that I had to do. And yeah.
So where did you go after college? Did you get a job right away?
I did. I said I finished my last semester being at home, and I was running the Vicelli Pizza in Monroeville at the time. It was right across from Gateway High School in that little strip mall. I was the general manager up there. I ran that for a year while I finished up school. And then when I was ready to go for a job, I got a job at PNC Bank working in customer support.
Not fun?
Every life experience has its lessons. I learned so many invaluable lessons from working in customer support. I worked in the business banking department for most of I was there for just short of 3 years. I spent most of that time in business banking. Working banking customer service is tough as it is. When you have business people who are calling you all the time because they have no money, it's not fun. It's tough. It was very rigorous.
Like what's an example phone call?
Oh, I mean, something as simple as somebody calling up and not realizing that, to manage a bank account and manage any type of business, you would know this, there's expenses that come along with a business. One of those is having a business banking account. And there are fees that are associated with the transactions and the various different activity that you do on that. That was the worst one on trying to explain a business person the cost of business. But that any type of fees, there was absolutely nothing worse than when you'd get somebody verified with their information and you pull them up and you see a negative balance in there and you already knew that call was going downhill real fast. So yeah, it was challenging. It was a very tough thing, but the communication skills and the de-escalation skills that I learned in that, 2.5, almost 3 years, those skills still come in handy, in my job today. And so I'm very much a person that I don't like to say that I regret anything, because every single experience that I've had in life has led me to where I am today. And I'm a very happy person with my life today. So it was very much a learning experience.
Do you think it gave you patience?
Yes, a little bit. I have learned very much that I don't pray for patience anymore, because every time I pray for patience, the big guy upstairs tests me. So I'd be very careful when I pray for patience now. But it was a start though, because you would have people berating you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
and you can't give it back to them. I had to fire a guy because he was getting yelled at by a customer and he thought he hit the mute button and he didn't hit the mute button. And he said, pardon my French, "Oh my God, will you please just shut the fuck up?"
Oh.
And he didn't hit the mute button. And I had to listen to the call. It was the very first thing I got. This happened at like 7:30 in the morning. I always worked an 8 to 4:30 shift. I came in at 8 o'clock. The guy walked out and he's like, "You're going to need to listen to a call." He's like, "I'm taking the rest of the day off." And I was like, oh man, this can't be good. So I logged in and I listened to the call and I heard it. And the lady's like, "What did you just say to me?" I remember it like it happened yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, and he hung up on her. He didn't know what else to do.
Got disconnected.
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably what I would do.
And listen, I'm no angel. I did it several times, but I always made sure the red button was lit on the mute button.
Check it a few times.
I think my man was still getting his first cup of coffee in him, and he thought he hit it. And he didn't. And yeah, it was caught on a recorded line. And yeah, we had to escalate it up through, the channels, and, someone had to call her. I don't know how it ended up. It was above my pay grade at that point, but yes. So yes, I mean, without a doubt, you learned to be able to take a verbal beating and, not kick back on every single one of them.
Has it helped you in your marriage? Is that a loaded question?
That is a loaded question. Because so many things
de-escalate things better than.
I can say this now because, we'll get into it. My wife and I have been through some things, and we have an amazing marriage today. Absolutely amazing marriage. The way that we talk to each other, I will say, is not the same way that I know a lot of other married couples that talk to each other. And that's because we'll just be honest with one another. And she has no problem calling me out on my shit.
So you love hard and you fight hard.
Oh, I wouldn't even call it fight hard.
Yeah.
Because we really don't. It's not even fighting.
Yeah.
It's just calling you on your
conversations.
Yeah. It's just calling you on your stuff. If you're, we say this all the time that we're the perfect yin and yang.
Okay.
We complement each other so. Everything I'm not is what she is, and everything she's not is what I am. And for example, my wife loves to spend money, and she has to be told no every now and again. And she tells me all the time, she's like, I love the fact that you tell me no, because otherwise I would just keep spending it. And, just as simple as, you and I were talking earlier about, vacations or something like that. I had to say, hey, we're buying a house. We're probably not going on vacation the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And, she still tries to insert it every now and again. And I'm like, honey, it's not happening this year. She's like, okay.
But I think that's what most women truly want deep down is an assertive partner, right? I had Harvey on from King's Community, and he was talking a lot about how his marriage, he was just go with the flow. He was essentially the puppet in the marriage for a long time. Mm-hmm. Wherever you want to eat, I'll go. Wherever you want to watch the movie, I'll watch it. That's how he was. Mm-hmm. And I think it hurt his marriage because he wasn't, I don't want to say you have to be like a dominant male figure, because that's kind of chauvinistic to say that. But
right.
I think women need that security or that a little bit of assertiveness that, someone's got your back and someone's going to be there to make the tough decisions, and
right.
someone's going to kind of hold your hand along the way. So,
well, at the end of the day, somebody has to be that.
Yeah.
No matter what, you can't, if you have two passive people that are in a relationship, probably gonna be
nothing's going to get done.
Yeah. It's going to be very tough.
Yeah.
And if you're okay living like that, okay. That's not how my wife or I want to live.
Right.
And so, we complement each other that way.
Good. Yeah, we'll get back to your marriage, but so what happens after customer service, which was the best job you ever had?
So I tried. I got fed up with what I was. I worked again. I'm a hard worker and I'm an intelligent person. And it has been an asset to me today, especially for where I'm at now in my career. So I worked my way up the ranks. And so I was what they called a coach. It was basically an assistant manager. And what I liked about it is I got to work with so many different people. I got to train different people. And so I got to kind of experience their success too. When they would get a new job, I felt like it not only reflected good on me, but I thought I really got a sense of accomplishment out of that. So I really thought for a while that I wanted to manage people. So I was in that position. One of our managers left. I ended up applying for the job, and me and one other guy were the only finalists for it. But he had an extra 5 years of experience on me. I pretty much knew going into it was going to happen, but I wasn't going to back out. We went through the process. He ended up getting the job. Him and I sat down. He was, super diplomatic about it. He's like, hey, I want to sit down and just make sure that nothing's going to be awkward or anything. I was like, no, man, I'm pumped for you. Yeah. I'm going to go look for something else. I decided to try sales.
No,
not for me, man. Not at all for me. I don't know if it's I don't know if I don't have the personality for sales or whatever, but I just didn't like it. It just did. I don't know. I didn't feel right. It was almost like trying to jam products down people's throat that really didn't need it.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel good about it. So I tried it for 3 months, and I woke up one morning and I turned to Tina and I said, I'm miserable. I said, this sucks. I said, I hate my job. I hate getting up in the morning. I don't want to go. I said, I don't think I'm going to work today. And she said, okay. You know, so I called in a sick day. I think it was a Tuesday, actually. So go through that day. Wednesday, I get up and I'm like, I don't want to go to work again. This is miserable. I did the same thing Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That Thursday morning when I got up, I called in and I told them I quit on the spot. I didn't put in 2 weeks. I didn't put in a resignation letter. I quit.
You didn't have a plan B?
I had no plan B, and it was not one of my proudest moments. I'm very much somebody who likes to go by the book. You know, I want to do things the right way, especially as I've gotten older now. You know, I like to stick to the rules. I'm not a rule breaker. But I just couldn't take it anymore. I was done. I had no plan B, nothing at all. I worked at a local grocery store for 9 months. I called up a guy because I used to work there part-time on the weekends. I said, hey, I was like, you still need help at all? He said, yeah, come on down.
How old were you at this point? You were married, right?
No, I was
you
not
weren't
married yet.
Okay.
No. What's funny is I actually quit my job, and then 2 months later, I bought an engagement ring and proposed to Tina.
Hey.
So I mean,
order.
It's just
what you do things in.
It felt. I actually had, after it happened, I had a friend call me, and he said, "Hey, what's up, man?" I said, "Nothing. What's up?" He's like, "Can I ask you something?" He's like, "You quit your job and then you decided to go buy an engagement ring?" He's like, "How does that make any sense?" I said, "Dude, I don't know. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm doing what feels right."
And that's what you did your whole life.
Right. Felt right. And that's what I did. But yeah, I was, I think 24.
Okay.
24, 25. Because Tina and I were living on our own. We were living in her great grandmother's old house after she passed away. We did the work to clean it up a little bit, and we ended up moving in there. It was left to her grandparents, and we rented off of them. So, I had obligations. I had a rent to pay, utilities to pay, life to live,
Life still moved
put food
on
on the table, and yeah, I had no plan B, just up and quit.
How did it feel to make that phone call?
I was nervous. I've never been somebody who enjoys difficult conversations at all. I've gotten more comfortable with them over time. I had a mentor at work. I think I've alluded to him several times when you and I talk. One of the most intelligent, smartest guys I know. Just super sharp. He is never off. The dude is on 24/7, 365.
Call him out.
It's amazing. It's Alan. What you have done for me in my life, personally and professionally, is amazing.
Alan,
Truly.
He talks about you all the time.
All the time. And he said, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then, whenever he first told me that, I was like, this was way down the road when he told me this. But, it hit me, and I was like, wow, I've always been uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
It never got any easier. But yeah, I was super stressed. I was nervous. I think I picked up the phone multiple times and put it back down.
Practiced.
I don't know. Maybe I'll try calling later. And the worst part is that I knew most likely I was going to get an answering machine.
Yeah.
As a salesperson, you can't sell by sitting here looking at the computer screen. You have to be on the phone. And our managers did that too. They would talk to people all the time. And so I figured and that's what I did. I got a messenger service. They called me back after that. But even when I got the call back, the incoming call, I was like, what am I going to say? I already left it on the answering machine, but So it was very uncomfortable, but
how did you feel after you made that call? Did you feel relieved? Or were you just what have I done? Instantly
relieved. And then very quickly, honestly, what I remember thinking about it now was being like, this is going to be really fun to tell my parents.
Ugh.
Because again, I gave nobody a heads up. My parents, my in-laws, my future in-laws, anybody around us, my wife's grandparents, who are landlord. Like, I mean, like, hey, I just quit my job.
You're like Mr. Spontaneity.
Like, I mean, oftentimes, I mean, it's worked out long term, but short term, they weren't always the best decisions.
But you made it work.
But, you know, I think I said, you know, again, Alan, you know, a failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. I mean, you know, I'd like to consider myself a successful person right now, but man, there's been a lot of failures over the years.
Yeah.
You know, and not all of them have I learned from. And I've made the same mistakes multiple times. And I look back now like, you idiot. Like, imagine how different things could have been years earlier.
I think you have to fail in life.
You have to.
To grow. You have to.
Grows character.
And it's okay. And I've had many of my guests, we've had the same conversation, not exactly the same conversation, but same thing. You know, you learn from your mistakes. And if you don't learn, then you're really fucking up. But, you know, if you actually get something from it, it's fine.
That's it.
You know? So you quit on the spot. You're working at a grocery store. Everyone thinks that you have your life together and you have everything planned out. Then here you go, screwing it up again. When did you finally like land that job that you felt happy with?
What's so funny before I answer that is that, you know, you saying people think you have your life together. If somebody wrote a book about me, that'd probably be the theme of it. From the 50,000 foot view, it always looked like I had my life together.
Yeah.
But it was like when you dove down into the details, it was a clusterfuck half the time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it truly was. Like, I mean, you know, perfect example right here. I mean, you know, I literally just up and quit a job where I mean, by no means was I making good money. You know, unfortunately, the banking industry, unless you are in, you know, a higher portion or on the corporate side of things, when you were on the operational side of things, you didn't make much money. So it wasn't like I was making a killer amount of money. But I ended up working at the grocery store for 9 months, bought an engagement ring and proposed to Tina at the time. Thank you for saying yes. And the first couple of months, I felt like I was almost kind of like rallying behind myself, saying like, yeah, you got to start looking for jobs. Yeah, you got to start looking for jobs. Yeah, you got to start looking for jobs. And then all of a sudden it was like 5-6 months out. You know, I did this in November it had to be November of 2013. So actually, no, I was 26 years old. Wow. Time flies. So that makes it even worse. Good Lord. But, you know, finally I was, you know, another life lesson. You know, if you sit back and wait, nothing is ever just going to show up in your lap. You got to go out and get it.
A lot of people today, the younger generation, that's what they're waiting for.
Yeah. You know, I mean, complacency is literally the opposite of progress. You know, if you are sitting back and just waiting for something to fall into your lap, it is never going to happen. You know? So finally, I bet you it was probably around like April or May timeframe. And I was like, all right, I should probably start looking at jobs. So I did. But again, kind of not knowing what do I want to do? I still didn't know. I wanted to get into some type of corporate setting again. I felt like that was where I could thrive. You know, somewhere where even just give me an entry-level job. I will work my ass off to be where I need to be. Just get me in somewhere. And so that's kind of where I started. But then I was reading all these job postings and I'm like, it was almost like I had this like chip on my shoulder that I didn't want to be somebody else's bitch either. Like I'm I'm too good for it. You know, like wow. Yeah. You know, like almost like a superiority complex. Like for what reason?
Where'd that come from?
I don't know. Because I've never been like an arrogant person. You know, I try to practice humility and be as humble as I possibly can in any setting. But it was, you know, for some reason during that time frame, and I'm literally stocking shelves in a grocery store. I wasn't doing anything special, you know, and so I'm reading all these job postings. I didn't know what to do. Finally, I actually interviewed for an accounts receivable position at GNC down at their corporate office. I interviewed with this one guy who, to me, a good interviewer has a conversation. It is not just sitting here What is your goal in life?
What
do you want to do?
What can you bring to this organization?
What did you do at your last job? Like, I mean, it's having a conversation like you and I do, you know, and that's what, like, I mean, kudos to you for all of these podcasts that you do. Every single one of them I've seen, it's a conversation. You're not even interviewing anybody. You are just having a conversation. That's what makes it fluid. So I get to GNC. I talk to this guy. We're having a conversation just like you and I are. I feel great about it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. You know, they say, okay, you know, the manager that you would be reporting directly to is going to come in next with her peer and interview you too. Cool. Sounds good. I swear to God, Shaun, they walked in here and it was like they were reading off a paper. Where do you want to be in 5 years? What did you do at your last job? What is your biggest weakness? And again, I'm a sociable person. Like, I want to talk to you. And it honestly threw me off a little bit.
Because you were having this very fluid, candid conversation, and all of a sudden, Interview 101 handbook comes out.
It was like I went from here to where I walked out of there, and I said, I'm not getting this job.
Because you weren't prepared for the questions?
I don't know if it... I think I came into the interview kind of like expecting something like that. But then... like, I'm having a conversation with this guy and everything's going great.
You were honey
we're just
dicked.
talking normal. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then, so like I left and then, you know, all of a sudden we switched back to, you know, robotics 101. And, you know, I left there saying like, I don't think I did that great on that part of it. And then, but I also left there saying like, I don't know if that's a person I want to work for either. You know,
yeah.
I have been very blessed in the time that I've been at my job now to have several really good managers, and the way that it helps influence their employees is amazing. But I will say I left that interview saying like, I don't know if this is somebody that I want to work for. And so, you know, waited about a week, you know, I get the email, thanks, but no thanks. And I was like, well, this sucks. Like, you know, so I kept looking, kept throwing some things in. I started applying for some things that probably weren't really like in my wheelhouse. Yeah. Just like, maybe I need to try something different. I don't know. And then kid that I play softball with, that I grew up with, you know, I heard all about this company that he works for, you know, Ariba. It's great, love it, great culture, everything like that. So he calls me the one day and he said, hey, he said, got an opening, you know, at this role. I said, okay, cool. I said, send it over to me. And I read it and I was like, I don't know, like, is this something I really want to do? So I called him back up and I was like, I said, did you do this job? He said, yes. He's like, you know, it's not the best thing in the world. He's like, but it's a foot in the door, you know. I said, okay. I said, fair. I'd do it.
It's better than what you had.
Right. I mean, again, it's not like I'm doing anything special. And like, I mean, no disrespect to anybody who works in a grocery store, runs a grocery store or anything. Like, I had no future there. Like, I mean, I knew, like, I was now engaged. I wanted to get married. I have always wanted to have kids. I love being a dad. It's all I ever wanted in life. Yeah. I wasn't going to be able to support my family by stocking shelves at a local grocery. So, you know, I wanted more for myself. So, you know, finally said, okay, filled out the application, attached the resume, whatever. I go in for the interview. It's going really well. We're having a conversation. And then all of a sudden it kind of like pivots a little bit and they start asking me about like financial concepts and stuff. And I was like, all right, like this wasn't anywhere in the job description. I read it very well. I was very prepared for this interview. I didn't want to be thrown off again. And, you know, it kind of like pivoted off of me. And I was like, okay. Like, I mean, I answered exactly how I would have, you know, any other way. And so we left there and they were like, okay, we'll be in contact. I left there. I was like, all right, I feel like that went pretty good. I want to say it was like 2 hours later, I got a phone call from somebody else at the company. And they said, hey, you know, I just talked to one of the individuals who interviewed it. You know, I actually have an opening on my team for, you know, doing working capital management with financial concepts. You know, would you be interested? You know, would you want to come in for an interview later this week? I was like, man, like, you know, again,
everyone wants me.
Maybe there's a bigger plan here, you know? Yeah. So I go in and it just so happened I mean, I guess that's why they wanted me to come in that day too. I shouldn't say it just so happened, but their the kid who I interviewed with, his boss, who lived in Florida, was also in town. So I got to meet her, interview with her, and I left there feeling really, really good. I was like, man, I think this is it. That was on a Friday, I think in the morning. By 3 p.m. that day, they called me back, offered me the job. The rest is history. I've been, Ariba was bought by SAP, and 8.5 years later, almost nine, it'll be 9 years in August. I'm still there.
Wow.
But again, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't actually get off my hind end and start looking for something. Lo and behold, I have a conversation. Instead of doing this job that I was like, all right, like I'll do it. I'll work my way up. I ended up getting thrust into something else that I was actually super interested in. I had a background in financial concepts. I could apply something that I actually learned in college.
How about that?
And two, it was impacting, companies' financial statements, which, being a math guy that I am, I was super interested in that. I was like, cool, this will give me another perspective on business that I didn't get in college. And yeah.
So you have finally landed, I don't want to say the dream job, maybe it is, but you seem happy in it. You've been there long enough. I know you've worked your way up in the organization from conversations that we've had in the past, and you're doing well. So good for you, dude.
Yeah, that one wasn't the dream job, but I will say too, being in that job, I got to work with some really awesome people that I still have texting conversations with today. And I haven't seen it, especially after COVID. Yeah. And then, I've been working remotely for almost probably 6 years now. I don't see them all the time, but like it was like I built those relationships that I can still continue to cultivate now that, just text each other sometimes. Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Just like you and I would.
Yeah. What is your dream job?
If I had to say what a dream job would be, it would be something in like sports broadcasting, sports marketing, something sports management, something along the lines that connected to sports. I'm a diehard sports fan. I can watch anything. I can talk about anything. Any of the major sports for the most part, I can intelligently talk a conversation with pretty much anyone, somebody who's in the industry or somebody who's not. I'm obsessed with sports.
Do you think that ship sailed? Is there any connection in what you're doing now to what you could be doing with sports?
A connection? No. What I will say is that, SAP is a company that employs, we just went through a massive restructure, so there were some layoffs. God blessed me and my wife. We both work for the same company. Both our jobs are safe. We've been able to, not only remain stable, but continue to grow in our careers there. But we employ over 100,000 people globally. There are opportunities everywhere. SAP is a massive sponsor for the NHL. Would I say the ship has sailed? No. There might be something down the road that I might be able to do out there. The only bad part about that is that a lot of it happens on the West Coast, where their primary offices are. I am not willing to relocate. We were talking about me buying a house and everything like that. Aside from going to college 45 minutes away, my first house was 15 minutes away from my childhood home. My second house, the first one that we bought, was 12 minutes away from my childhood home. My new house is 30 seconds away from my childhood home. My wife's family is all very close, so we would never be willing to relocate.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Could it happen? Of course. You never know.
But you're not going to be picking up the phone, quitting anytime soon.
It is not. I will say I truly. Nobody says like I love my job, But I know I will be a working individual for the rest of my life. I will continue to support my family. I like my job right now as much as anybody could. I work with an amazing team. I have an incredible manager who not only is very relatable. He has 3 young kids of his own that are all under 5. Again, I have a 3 and a 6-year-old, so he's very relatable, very flexible in things. I don't have to be tied to a schedule or a computer of being 8 to 4. I can work for a couple hours. 4 or 5 days a week. I take my kids to work or take my kids to school in the morning. I drop my little one off at daycare. I shoot my older one to school, and I go to Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
I do that 4 or 5 days a week.
The flexibility is irreplaceable in a lot of sense.
I work out, I come home, I take a shower, and I start working.
Yeah.
There are other times when, if I have something else that needs to be done, I get up at 6 a.m. before the kids are awake. I work for an hour and a half, get them up, my wife and I get them ready for school. I still go work out. Then I come home and work. If I have to work at night, I can do that. I'm not tied to a specific schedule, so the flexibility is amazing.
Yeah.
I make enough money to be able to do the things that we do now. My wife still works. We're relatively successful as a couple, and so I'm not looking to make any major changes anytime soon. I'm as happy as I've been at any job in my entire life, which is amazing.
That's got to feel good to be able to say that.
Can't put a price on it.
Not too many people could.
No, regardless of, what I make or anything like that, you can never put a price on happiness. And that and the flexibility, the ability to take my kids to activities. My wife and I are very involved in my daughter's school. We get to go to activities during the day. I get to see talent shows, participate in, sporting events that they do during the day. They did pep rallies in the middle of the afternoon last year. I went to all of them. You can't put a price on being present and being around for those things.
You're
It's
absolutely
amazing.
right. No one wants to wake up in the morning and say, I don't want to go to work today. I don't want to do this today. And then
I've been
the
there.
next day and the next day. Like, yeah, exactly. Like you used to do. That's got to be a horrible feeling. And I've been there. I'm in my 3rd company, since I got my college degree. And do I love my job? Have I ever loved my job?
Right.
No. But different variants of how much I enjoyed each one.
Absolutely.
So you're painting a really pretty picture right now, Tony. Has there ever been a time in your life where that painting was just messed up?
So many.
Share some with me.
So many. My wife and I get along very, very well. And we're able to have serious conversations. We're able to have tough conversations. That is a product of being through the absolute ringer with things. I said before that I never did dumb stuff until I was at least 18. Looking around here, all this bourbon and everything on the wall, I'm not drinking it. I have not had a drink in almost 5.5 years. I was telling you right before we went on air, 1,979 days, because I keep a countdown of it. Alcohol was a very, very unhealthy thing in my life. It was something that I used. I don't even know if the word is a crutch. I almost hate to use the word crutch because it wasn't just a crutch, because I didn't like to, there was a period of time where I just didn't like to feel things, and regardless of whether that was unhappy, stressed, pissed off, happy, celebrating, it didn't matter. I drank in a very unhealthy way.
At what point did you know it was unhealthy?
Again, hindsight's always 20/20. I will say that I didn't drink like a normal person all the way back to when I was a cow. Probably even before that, a little bit. But kind of accredit a lot of that to just being young, having fun, being dumb,
Yeah.
Being allowed to make mistakes in your life. But there weren't a whole lot of times where Tony just had a drink or two. Tony had a lot of drinks. I drank for a feeling. Somebody told me that not long after I quit drinking, that if you're constantly picking up an alcoholic beverage to feel a certain way, it might be a problem. And I did that a lot.
So you drank to the point where you felt something, and that's how you wanted to feel all the time.
And beyond.
Okay.
It wasn't just that. Now, I wasn't an everyday drinker. I wasn't somebody who couldn't function without putting some type of alcoholic beverage in my system. But the bottom line is that when I did consume alcohol, it changed me. I wasn't, the fun-loving, nice guy, respectful, polite. That wasn't me when I drank. It was to an extent. But then, it wasn't so much, I shouldn't say that, it wasn't so much in college. I had a lot of fun in college. I don't have any regrets for, the partying that I did, the fun that I had, everything like that. But it wasn't healthy. It kind of laid the foundation a little bit for, where it got to down the line. So
what did it do to your relationship?
I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer that. Bluntly, it almost ended it. This went on for years and years. My wife is like an angel from above for putting up with what she did with me.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't easy, especially even so, go past college, go past, even younger days, being young and dumb. When I quit my job and, I go back to working at a grocery store, there were many times when I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I even decided at one point that I wanted to go back to grad school. I did one semester of an MBA, and then I was like, I hate this too. I was actually, now that I think about it, I was in the middle of a semester when I quit my job because I was like, oh, well, at least, my job will pay for it. And then I quit my job and I was like, well, I'm not paying out of pocket for this. So I finished the semester and I never went back. I don't think that was a bad decision. Didn't hinder me in any way, shape, or form. But, when I did quit my job, there were a lot of times when just sitting around pondering, like, what I want to do, what am I going to do? It was very stressful. And, to cope with that, I would drink. The problem that I had was that I was also kind of like a closet drinker. I didn't let people know what I was drinking, to the point where, Tina and I would be sitting at home and, she would see me have like 2 or 3 beers or something like that. But she didn't see that I had, bottle of vodka or something like that stashed away that every time I go out to the kitchen, I'm slugging some from, I'm hiding stuff throughout the house. I'm, being sneaky, not being an upfront and honest partner in life. But then also, it'd get to a point and I start acting like an idiot. And she's like, what the hell's wrong with you?
You had 2 beers.
Yeah. And, for somebody, I'm not a big guy, I'm 5'6", 175 pounds. Yeah. I could drink. And it was almost because I had trained my body to be able to do that.
Right.
So, she knew something was up, you don't have a couple drinks and you're acting like this. And so, she would start to say those things. Well, now I'm no longer in control. I'm past that point. So then what do I start doing? I start yelling back.
Getting defensive.
What do you mean? That's ridiculous. And that is where it really started, and then, she would get upset about it. So I would continue to feel like, oh, well, I have to hide this. And that behavior just started to get completely out of control. So, yeah, just dishonesty, being a sneaky person, but just bottom line being not me. Those are the points that it kind of, that it took me towards. It was controlling me more than I was controlling it when I was putting it in my body.
So you drank during the day, at night, like
whenever I felt like it.
Okay. There was no like, it has to be after 6 p.m. It was kind of part of your life at that point.
So, so there were times when I said that I would control my drinking. If I was going to drink, I would control when I was going to do it. So I said, like, well, I'll only drink when I'm at home. Well, then I'd stay home all the time and I drink. Well, I'm only going to drink when I go out. Well, then I start going out like 4 nights a week. Especially, in the summertime, at one point I played on 2 or 3 different softball teams, 2 weeknight leagues, a Sunday team. So every single time, I played games 4 or 5 days a week. Every single time, where do we go after the game?
Go to the bar.
Go to the bar. Yeah. We were sponsored by Rivertown at one point. I played for a carnivores team.
All the bars.
Yeah, anywhere around. Yeah. And for a long time, the guys that I played weeknight with, there were 4 or 5 of us that would go up to margarita night every night on Tuesdays. We'd go get half-price margaritas up at Mad Mex. And, I drink 4 or 5 of these margaritas that are, 22 ounces. So not only am I leaving there intoxicated, but I'm also just being such an unhealthy person overall. Yeah. I start to gain weight. I start to look, sloppier. I feel like crap. It was tough. But there was just, once I started, there was no controlling it. I could pick when I wanted to start. Sometimes that was at 10 a.m. Sometimes it was at 10 p.m. And then I'd drink until 2, 3 in the morning.
So you tried to justify when you're going to drink and how much you're going to drink, mm-hmm. or where you're going to drink, mm-hmm. as a way of you being in control of it.
Mm-hmm. It was an attempt at controlled drinking.
But you completely worked around that, mm-hmm. and you played your own game to give yourself an excuse to drink whenever you wanted.
It's almost like saying like it's an allergy. I had a reaction when I put a drink in my body. And that reaction was that I wanted more. And I wasn't going to stop until I got to a certain point. The problem is that I didn't stop at that point either. Especially when I was at home, because I knew I wasn't driving. I was more careful. I definitely, by no means was sober when I was driving sometimes. But especially at home when I'm like, I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to drive anywhere.
Reins are off.
Yeah. I'm not going anywhere. So I can sit here and drink as much as I want.
What do you think's the most you ever drank in a 24-hour period?
In a 24-hour period? Probably about 1.5 bottles. When I say a bottle, a fifth.
Yeah, so 1.5.
If I remember correctly, as I am a numbers guy, I believe 1/5 of alcohol has 17.4 drinks in it. 17.4 shots.
Wow.
So 1.5 of those, you do the math, about 25, 26 drinks.
So you said you were chasing a feeling. Did you feel like you had to feel like that to feel like you're being yourself? Or why were you chasing that feeling? What did that feeling do for you?
I think oftentimes I didn't want to be myself. It was like I wanted to, I don't want to say a sense of belonging, because it was also again, full disclosure, I drank at home a lot. But, even back to, so let's go back to college again. At Cal U, okay, I don't know very many people. I moved in there. I met my roommates that day. Within 6 weeks of being there, all of a sudden we were hosting parties every weekend. My apartment was 313 up at Vulcan Village. My apartment was the place to be up at Vulcan Village on Friday and Saturday night, because I always had a party. I always had money to pay for alcohol because I worked the entire summer before I moved up there. And then I got a job when I was there, and that helped pay for my habits. So, I always had alcohol up there. People were able to get it. If they didn't have it, they'd pay me and I'd give it to them. I was 21 already, so I could buy, I could go down to the liquor store anytime I wanted. Mm-hmm. I would, people give me money. Here's $20, go get me a bottle of alcohol. It's a $12 bottle, and they say keep the change. Cool. It was almost like a business for me.
Alcohol
awesome.
Pimp.
You got to come to my apartment to get it. I'm not delivering it, but
that costs extra.
But yeah, so it was kind of a way to fit in and meet people then.
Yeah.
And then, as I got older, there were times when I just didn't want to feel myself. What am I doing with my life? I can't figure it out now. But there were a lot of other times too when it was just, it wasn't about continuing to chase a feeling. It was like I already had a feeling, but I just didn't want to stop, you know, and I keep going until you no longer have control. You know, I mean, I was driving home one time from a concert with a friend of mine, and I pulled over in the middle of the highway, and I was like, dude, you got to drive home. Like, I can't do it. I mean, middle of 376, I pulled over on the shoulder, like 11 p.m.
At least you had the awareness to
And
do that.
I mean, that time I had somebody in the car with me, but I mean, yeah, I was like, I can't drive home. Like, I'm seeing 12 lanes.
So what was the breaking point? That you're finally like, all right, I need help. Or did someone else say, hey, you need help?
So I had been told that so many times before. So many times.
How did you handle that?
Dude, you got to quit drinking. Dude, you got to, you know, and again, my dad, all right, love my dad to death, you know, tough as nails type of dude. And he'd be the person that come down as I'm hammered, come down to my house and be like, hey, dumbass, why don't you just quit drinking? And I'm like, yeah, easy for you to say. Like, you know, so I mean, but those were some of the conversations that I had, you know, people looking at it just saying, like, why don't you just quit drinking? Well, you know, maybe I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, did you ever think of that? You know, so there were conversations like that. There were also several very real conversations between, you know, my wife and I saying, like, you know, you got to get this under control. Like, what is going on? I mean, I remember, so Tina was pregnant with my first daughter. Okay. This was summer of 2017. We were playing, well, earlier in that summer, we were playing softball, and I was playing shortstop down at Penn Hills Park. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I'm playing shortstop. Ball gets hit to the hole. I dive over. I catch it, kind of jerk my shoulder back on it. I landed on my shoulder. Dislocated my shoulder out the front, tore my labrum, 50% of it from here to here. And, you know, I had to have surgery on it. I have 4 calcium phosphate screws in my shoulder now. You know, God bless me, I have no other issues with it now. It's actually stronger than it ever was. But, you know, when that happened, Tina was already 7 months pregnant with Gianna. I had to have surgery. So I have surgery, and, you know, I'm not supposed to be driving or anything like that. But, you know, what do? I'm sitting at home. I'm working. I'm bored. What do? I'm sitting here in a sling with my arm hung up like this 3 days after having surgery. I'm driving down to the liquor store because I'm like, I'm bored. I need something to do. But, you know, I say all that because, you know, throughout all of this, I have become a very spiritual person. You know, I'm very much, you know, in touch with God in my way. Tina was due on a Sunday. I was obviously out for the season. I couldn't play the rest of the year. And we had our playoff tournament at Renton. So I'm down at Renton. I'm watching you guys all day long. You know, I had a, you know, couple beers while we were sitting there. And we left there. And I went down to the liquor store and I got a bottle. And I was like, you know, now I'm miserable. Like, I watched you guys play ball all day. I wish I could have been there. You know, wish I could have been playing to help the guys out. I'm all pissed off. You know, I'm getting drunk tonight. And I didn't. I got home, and, you know, something just didn't feel right. I was like, nah, like, I'm not going to do this. Tina wakes up at 3 a.m. She's like, I think this kid's coming. I would have, if I would have gone home, and I would have been absolutely hammered at that point. They probably wouldn't have even let me in the hospital.
Wow.
But, you know, that's...
Yeah.
That was that was one of the first kind of, like, you know, spiritual experiences, you know, if you will, when it comes to my drinking habits. So Gianna's born, you know, everything. Happy, healthy baby, you know, a little colicky, but she cried a lot as a baby. But I mean, you know, healthy as can be, you know, amazing, beautiful little girl, you know, and, you know, something just, I don't know. I don't want to say that it wasn't, like, you know, reality didn't set in yet or anything like that, but, like, nothing changed in me. I was still, you know, going and doing what I wanted. You know, I took 2 weeks off of work, and I would still, you know, go out after work with the guys or something like that, you know, leaving my, you know, just my wife who just gave birth, you know, a couple weeks ago, sitting at home with a newborn, like, you know, hey, I'll be home later. just it I don't know, it just didn't take for me at first. So, all this stuff keeps up, you know, same conversation, I go do something dumb, I keep drinking, you know. So we we decide that I don't know why, but I think we decided a change of scenery was going to be a good thing. So we said we're going to go buy a house. Why not? That'll fix everything. Because geographically relocating yourself, even if it's only a couple minutes away, that'll fix everything. So we did. We buy a house, the one that we're in right now, the one that we're selling. Get the agreement, everything goes under, and when we moved in, I said to myself, I was like, I'm not going to drink here. I'm not going to be an idiot. I'm going to be done. I'm not going to act stupid anymore. At this point, I had been introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I was like, nah, that's not me.
Yeah.
I don't even like using the word alcoholic because it has such a stigma.
It does.
It's just like mental illness, addiction, like all these things, it has such a stigma.
Mm-hmm.
But what people don't understand is that, those types of problems, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism, doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are. I've met people that are very successful doctors who can't quit drinking. And they've tried and they can't. Wow. But yeah, so we buy this house, think everything's gonna be good. It wasn't. Same things keep happening, same cycle keeps going through. A couple weeks everything's good. All of a sudden, Tony's acting like an idiot again. So for a while, Tina didn't want me being alone with my child for fear of her well-being.
Wow.
She's, 6, 7, 8 months at this point. Is she going to be taken care of? Is she going to be okay? Is Tony going to give her a bottle? Is Tony going to change her diaper? She didn't know that. I never got myself to the point where I was unable to take care of, Gianna when I was with her myself. I was responsible enough to do that, but it was like after Tina came home, like all bets were off. And again, I was the person who would hide alcohol anywhere. Oh, I'll go do laundry. I got something stashed behind the laundry, or behind the washer or something like that. Yeah, it was it was again. I was letting it take over my life. So, this keeps up into, late November. Actually, this was late November of 2018. We went away for a weekend with friends of ours. We went to the holiday place in West Virginia.
Ogle Bay.
Yes, Ogle Bay. We had started to kind of make that, we made it a little tradition before COVID happened, and then COVID happened, and now we've never been back since. But we started making that. I think we went 3 years in a row. We were like, it's going to be a holiday tradition. We'll go the weekend after Thanksgiving. So that's what we did. We went there, had a great time. It was really good. We were actually getting along really well as we had for a long period of time. And so we get back that Monday. I think we were off work that day. And Tuesday, Tina went to work. Gianna went to daycare. And so what? She's a little over a year at this point. I woke up that morning and, again, everything's good. We're getting along. Everything's going really well. And I was like, man, I really want to drink today. I to this day, I cannot explain it. I want to drink today. And I started early. 10, 11 a.m., something like that. While I was working, I never got myself to the point where I couldn't fulfill my duties of my job. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there were conversations where people are like, what's going on with this dude? When you're talking to somebody who's been drinking.
Yeah.
It's very easy to notice. And I guess Tina got home from work and I was just asleep in bed. It was 5:30, 6 o'clock, something like that. I'm asleep in bed. She tried to wake me up. I guess she even called my dad to come down. And I was passed out. I was out cold. So she was fed up. She said, whatever, I'm done with this. I woke up that Wednesday morning and obviously in a fog. And I'm looking around, and Tina and Gianna aren't there. I'm like, what's going on? It's like 7 a.m., Well, I find out, she called me in the afternoon, and she said, I'm going to go stay with my mom for a little while. And I mean, I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
She said, I'm going to go stay with my mom for a little bit. She's like, this isn't working. Like, this isn't going well. Like, I don't know what you need to figure out, but we can't keep living like this. This is it. And I was like, man, like, we had all these blowout fights, and I mean blowout fights. I mean, Tina and I are both very much Italian. So when we get into a battle, it's not pretty. If we get into a verbal argument, it is very loud. I'm sure the neighbors heard it on several occasions, and I'm not proud of that. But, I remember she ended up being out of the house for 9 days, I think. And I'm living in this house, and I mean, we've a beautiful house, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. It's a relatively big house, and I'm there all by myself with my dog. I'm like, man, this sucks. And, so what's the first thing I do the next day? I go drink.
Yeah.
I'm like, what else am I supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to deal with this? I didn't know how to deal with life. So that's what I did for another couple days. And then, finally we get to the following Tuesday, and I had drank the night before. I woke up, and I was like, I looked in the mirror, and I looked like hell. I mean, like somebody just beat the hell out of me and left me on the side of the road. I could smell myself. It wasn't that I wasn't taking care of myself. It was just like, I mean, I was doing nothing but going to work and then, drinking after I came home from work. So I looked in the mirror and I said, something's got to change. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I miss my kid. I miss my wife. I'm like, this sucks. Like, this isn't me. I wasn't put on here to be this person.
Yeah.
I have to figure something out. And so, I went to work that day, and I actually went into the office that day. I distinctly remember, like, telling my manager, like, hey, like, I might need to take a day or two off this week. Like, I got to get my mind right. I won't go into details with you, but, I'm not me. I might need a day or two. And he's like, whatever you got to do, let me know if you need something. I said, cool. I ended up not taking any time off. But that night, I went home, and again, I had been introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous before. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, how do I got to lose? So I went to a meeting that night down in Pitcairn, because that was the ones that I knew. It was the first one I ever went to. And I sat there like a little kid, scared to death. Not that I hadn't been there before, but just like, it's different this time. Something in me is viewing this as different than I previously did when I was here. And I sat there, they gave me a reading. It was the only time I spoke the entire hour-long meeting. And when the meeting was over, there was a lady there named Judy. And I walked up to her and I said, I don't know what I need. I said, but I need help. I'm like, I don't like who I am. And, so she talks to me for like 2-3 minutes or whatever. And then this little old Italian guy comes walking up the steps of the place down there. And she points to him, and she goes, go talk to him. I said, okay. So I went over and talked to him. And I stayed very involved in Alcoholics Anonymous for a period of time. I haven't been nearly as involved for probably the last 6 months or so. But I was pretty heavily involved for a while. And he ended up becoming my sponsor. And what I say is always so funny is that, my dad was always the one to come down and said, like, why don't you just quit drinking? Like, quit being a dumbass, just quit drinking. And this old little Italian guy who acts and sounds just like my dad ends up being my sponsor and, helps me get to where I'm at today. I mean, it was nothing short of another spiritual experience and an act of God in my life, because for the first time, I actually said I wasn't willing to do it on my own. I needed somebody else. I needed something else to help me get to where I need to be the person that I am meant to be on this earth.
I think it's hard for a lot of people to admit they need help with anything.
It is.
And for someone like you, Tony, you made it through pretty much your whole life at that point, being in control of everything, making rash decisions, not having a plan B, just being in control. I got this. And it's like you had this confidence that everything was going to be okay. And you didn't need anyone's help. You said, I got this. I'm going to do it on my own. So for you to say that you need help, that had to be hard to do. Did it make you feel a certain weakness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honest to God, when I was... I don't even know if I can put a word to I mean, at some point, I guess I felt like, why can't you do this? Do you just suck as a person? You can't do this on your own. But what's crazy about it is I say that Tuesday morning. So that was December 4th of 2018. And, by the grace of God and a lot of hard work, I have not had a drink since that day. Excuse me. But again, it was the first time that I did say that, maybe I do need something else. And it felt like shit. I mean, because again, when you do things for the first time, just as a person, but even when you were talking before about being a guy and this, masculinity and this certain responsibility that you feel in life, that you're just going to take care of everything. And, no matter what, you're going to handle it and you're going to get through it. Well, then all of a sudden I met my match.
Yeah.
I met my match that I could not get past. I got past partying and acting like an idiot when I was 21 and 22. I got past quitting a job and, just figuring my way out. I got past, the debts of my past in every situation that I ever had. And then all of a sudden it was like, no matter what I do, I go back to square one. Even if I have a couple days or a couple weeks where I either wasn't drinking or I felt like I was back in control, it didn't take very long before the wheels were back off. But I finally had met that match that I couldn't do anything. And I did. I felt like crap. I mean, not to where I ever, that conversation that I had with myself in the mirror was, that was my official, surrender point, where, I can't do it on my own anymore. But there were several times where, it wasn't in the mirror, but I'm thinking to myself, what kind of person are you? But as kind of the fog started to clear a little bit, I got out of the haze, I'm starting to think straight again. What I very quickly realized was that all the other shit that I was doing when I was drinking and acting like an idiot and doing all that dumb stuff, that wasn't me either. Yeah. That was me on a substance, a mind-altering substance that was making me act like somebody I wasn't. Now, solely my responsibility for putting it into my body and consuming it the way that I did. But, I started to quickly change that perspective on wow, you suck. You can't do this. Why can't you figure this out on your own? To saying well, I don't want to be that person anyways. Trying to do it on my own clearly wasn't working. Yeah. Might as well try something else, yeah. So I started listening to some, little Italian guy who seemed to know a whole lot about what he was doing and, living his life the way that he wanted to, even if he acted and sounded just like my dad.
Isn't it funny how, your family and your close friends can tell you something all day, every day, and it just doesn't hit the same as an unbiased ear or a stranger saying the same thing? It's just wild.
It is. And again, I've had, I was against, I was very involved in Alcoholics Anonymous for a period of time. And I met so many people in so many different backgrounds, who the same thing, everybody says like, dude, you're an idiot. You should try doing something different. And then all of a sudden you get into a room with a bunch of other people who all of a sudden have nothing in common except for the fact that they don't drink normally. That's it.
It's probably a safe space to be in, I would think, being that your weakness is everyone else's weakness and you all of a sudden don't feel alone anymore.
You don't. But that's I think the catch-22 about it though too. Okay? Because it is a safe space. Okay? You can go in there and you can talk about a lot of things, and I mean, full disclosure, this is the first time that I have ever talked in this capacity about my past outside of those four walls of a meeting where you are anonymous. Nobody, people know you. You form a lot of relationships there, and I formed a lot of great relationships through being in the program. But this is the first time that I've ever had that outside of there, and so you do feel. I don't want to say a level of comfortability, but it is. It's like a safety net. But that safety net is also deceptive because, we live 24 hours in a day. You can't be in those four walls 24 hours a day. You have to basically train yourself to live your life, feel things, go through major events without this crutch that you have been using for so long. And I think that is a very tough thing for some people to grasp, because you still have to go outside of, and I've said this several times before, like I can say and do whatever I want for this 1 hour that I'm in here, but I still got to go out there for 23 other hours and be able to live my life without acting like an idiot.
Yeah. Scary.
It is. And it's tough. It's a big change. It is.
Do you think you'd be divorced if you wouldn't have got help?
Yes. I don't even have to hesitate with that question. And I say all the time, I might be biased because I'm married to her. But my wife has been, ever since I made that decision to do something different and to try something different in my life, she's been behind me 100%. Not saying she wasn't hesitant up front, because she's been burned enough.
Yeah.
I did a lot of, we could sit here for hours and I could tell stories, of the, the arguments that we had, the things that I did. But all that matters is that I did it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she was hesitant at first, but she was willing to take that chance because, she knew the person that I could be and the person that I'm supposed to be. And, again, God bless her, she stuck through this whole thing. And, 5.5, what is today? May 5th. So I'm actually just past 5 years, 6 months, and 1 day. Since the last, or 5 months and 1 day, since the last time that I had a drink and at least had a reason to act like an idiot. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it.
No one is.
But, she's been behind me the whole time. She's been my biggest cheerleader through the whole thing. And, I like to say that, she's been able to reap the benefits of it too, on, the successful marriage, how happy we are today. The type of person, the type of husband, father, brother, son, all those different hats that we wear as men, I can do that successfully today.
That's a great story. I know that could have a weird connotation, but how many times leading into this episode did you text me saying, I'm not that interesting, dude? All of these guests you're having on is making me feel like I'm not really worthy of being on there. How many times did you text me that?
3-4 times this week.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times before. I remember the very first time when you told me that you were doing this podcast. I was like, that's super cool. I remember the first time you asked me. And I, of course, said yes. I love you like a brother. I mean, to be a part of this, to be a part of this brand that you're growing, is amazing. I mean, I've been part of BTC. I've been part of the family. You and I have had a great friendship over the years. Like, I mean, so to be a part of something like this is awesome. I'll be honest with you. There was several times where I debated whether I was going to talk about this before, and again. Not because I'm afraid of it or ashamed of it. If anybody ever asked me, I would 100% tell them. But they don't ask. And I think it's out of respect more than anything. What's ironic is that oftentimes alcohol is the only drug that you have to explain why you don't use it.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody walks up to you and offers you an 8-ball of cocaine, like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to shoot up heroin? No, I'm good. You don't. Do you want to drink? No, I'm good. Oh, what? You don't drink?
Yeah.
No, I
You're
don't.
right.
It's the only one that you ever have to justify for. The only drug. And I mean, it's such a staple in society. It's it's legal, obviously, regulated, everything like that. But it's also a huge problem,
Can be.
And I think, like, I mean, the reason why I was comfortable with coming on here and talking about it is two reasons. One, if I would have done this years ago, I'd probably be sitting here, 7, 8, 9 years without a drink, maybe talking in a different context. I don't know, maybe less trials and tribulations. Every single experience I've ever gone through has shaped me into the person that I am today. Mm-hmm. I'm very comfortable and very happy with that person that I am today. But I mean, listening to this podcast, hearing the people that came before me, and they're not even just like want to tell a story, but their confidence in telling the story too. I mean, you just never know. Again, alcoholism, addiction, mental illness, anything like that, it doesn't discriminate. It can hit anybody. And any background, any occupation, you can be single, you can be married with kids, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so I was explaining this on a few other episodes. You might have heard that my channel has been restricted to 18 and over because one of my guests had an eating disorder.
I heard that.
I'm not going to say the A word because that got me in trouble last time. But how sad is it that those topics are being restricted from those who are under 18 years old, and they probably need the help more than anybody, or at least need brought aware of the issues as a whole.
It sucks, and I say it sucks because of how many people I've met under the age of 18 who have been court-ordered to complete some type of alcohol rehabilitation, right, or been court-ordered to do X amount of meetings in Y period. Excuse me. That's what makes it sad, because there are people out there that need it. And I think that's the way that I look at it now, on that, who am I to not talk about the things that I went through? When again, it could be anybody else. I alluded to it earlier. When you have ever looked at my life from the 50,000-foot view, it doesn't look that bad. Yeah. I mean, I was never homeless. I was never drinking out of a brown paper bag underneath a bridge. We always had 2 cars in the driveway. We had a house. I had a beautiful daughter at home. I have a beautiful wife at home. All of these things, it looks great. You never know the struggles that people are going through unless you open up about them. And, I would encourage anybody else, if you're having trouble, talk to somebody about it. I promise you, somebody out there has gone through the same thing, and somebody will be able to help you. But nobody can know that unless you tell them.
Yeah. Amen, brother.
It's tough. It's not easy.
No.
It took a long time for me to get there.
Being vulnerable is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a huge strength in it. And it does feel good. I mean, you saying that this is the first time you've opened up to this capacity outside of those 4 walls, That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And other guests I've had have confessed, I don't want to say it was a confession, but have talked about things that they haven't told many people, if anybody, before.
And what's funny is that I've done, what we call leads in AA. I've stood up and talked about some of my deepest, darkest secrets in front of 30, 40, 50 people. I went to a rehab facility one time and went and shared my story in front of probably like 60 to 70 people that are just in there, like, coming off of, a 10-day bender or something like that, just trying to get themselves right. And, I've had no problem, talking like that in front of them.
Yeah.
But it's never been in more of like a public setting. But again, knowing the following that you have and, the people that have done it before, that's what kind of gives the strength to be able to, just come on here and talk about those things.
Well, I thank you for being open about it. I knew that you had struggles. I didn't know to what level. But yeah, I mean, just for you to have the strength to talk about it, I really appreciate it. And I know the viewers appreciate it too. So, but on that note, we need to arm wrestle.
This is the part I've not been looking forward to.
Have you been training?
No. In fact, Gianna had strep again last week. So I didn't even get I think I only went to the gym.
Don't start making excuses, dude. Right off the bat. And that's your good shoulder.
It is my good shoulder.
So I don't want to hear that either.
Don't hurt me, all right?
I won't.
This is the throwing shoulder.
Oh yeah, you got a game next week. No, Mother's Day. You're off next week.
No, Mother's Day we're off. We got
Okay.
2 weeks, but I got to move.
All right, you start.
My wife wouldn't be happy.
Sorry in advance. You start whenever you're ready. If you could talk to childhood Tony today, being what you've been through, what would you tell him?
Never give up. It gets better. You'll go through some stuff. Don't ever let that win. Keep being you. If I wasn't sweating before, I am now. Oh, my Lord.
But yeah, I mean, that's a great message. I know you're under duress answering that question. But that's a great message. Never give up. You probably were in the pit of hell, kind of didn't realize it because you were masking it every day. Or did you realize that you were in a really dark place?
I mean, I knew that things weren't good. I don't think I truly knew how bad they were until I woke up that morning and all of a sudden, my pride and joy, my wife and daughter are no longer there. That was my rock bottom. I mean, where what am I doing here? Like, everything that I've worked for is now gone.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I doing? So I think I was in the pits of hell for a while. I just wasn't willing to accept that I was. And then, I mean, I guess the other thing, about it too, that I never really alluded to throughout the story is that I never suffered any consequences. I mean, nothing truly bad ever happened to me.
But that's because of the choices you made to fix the problems.
Yes and no. I mean, I guess I probably could have, I wrecked a car when I was 25.
Okay.
I was drunk when I did it. I totaled it. I hit a telephone pole in Trona Heights or something like that. I don't know. Or a light pole. I walked away from that with a ticket for going through a stop sign.
Wow.
I mean, I just, all the disagreements and everything like that, I had with, my wife over time. We'd argue. I'd go to bed. I wake up the next morning. She's still there. I mean, it was almost like the consequences just weren't coming. I mean, so yeah, I figured my way out of some things too. But I also got very lucky that
You
things
feel-
weren't a lot worse.
Does that make you feel guilty in a way?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, excuse me. Whenever Tina came back home after, staying with her mom for, like 9-10 days, whatever it was, I told her that I felt like I was like starting from ground zero with her. I mean, I remember that next day after she came home, we went out to Pittsburgh Mills. We went to Chili's to eat. We just walked around the mall. We let Gianna play in the little toddler area. And I remember looking at her and feeling and saying, I feel like I'm starting over with you. Like,
It's like a first date.
I have to rebuild. Excuse me. I have to rebuild everything from scratch again. Everything that we did over the past. I mean, we've been together for almost 14 years now. We've been married for, it'll be seven in October. And so, at that point we'd been together for 8 years, and it was almost like, not that I don't ever want to say that it didn't exist. Because again, I have no regrets in life. I wish that I had figured things out sooner. But I'm never going to sit here and say that I have a regret. But yeah, it was almost like that portion just was a blip on the radar. Like, you had to start back from it. I had to build trust again. I've known this woman for 8 years. I've been married to her for over a year. Or 2 years. I have a child with her, and now I have to rebuild trust. It was like building a relationship back up from square one.
It's almost like you were living a different life for that time.
Yeah, I mean,
in a way,
you could say that.
Yeah,
especially with the deceit, the deception, the dishonesty.
Acting.
So it wasn't me.
Unlike yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were a different person.
100%.
Probably more than half the time for almost 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That's deep, man. And yeah, we could probably talk for a few more hours, but we probably have like 10 more minutes of memory card space. So we're going to wrap. But dude, you said you love me like a brother, and the feeling is mutual. And I'm glad you came. I know you were kind of hesitant on what you were going to talk about, or even if you were going to show up, but your story, I guarantee your story is going to help somebody. So mission accomplished there, brother.
I hope it helps somebody.
Guaranteed.
That's the idea.
So thanks again, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Maybe we'll have you back around too one day.
Hey, I'd love to. There's a lot more to discuss,
Well, all right. We'll schedule something. But thank you for watching. Please watch one of my previous videos, and please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode of Barbells and Bourbon. Peace. My man.